Jason, that guy is so overrated.
Dude, I'm just telling you. Have you seen him live though? Have you seen him live?
Jason, you have lost all credibility with me.
Bro, I'm just he I'm just telling you. I've seen him live like 3 times. He kills, he slays. Billy Joel is the freaking GOAT. Hey, what a shaking, everybody. What a shaking. Today we're here to talk about jazz pianist Billy Joel. I don't know why I'm getting resistance and pushback from Chris. What's going on, man?
You're killing me, Smalls. I mean, I gotta say, I never thought I'd look forward to Mondays, but the past couple of weeks, Monday's the new Friday for me. So I'm happy to be here again.
Oh, I love it, dude. I love it. It's likewise, I'm sure. Very much so. What is up, everybody? Thank you for being here. We're really not going to, well, I don't know. Billy Joel might come up at some point. Who knows? A little teaser, stick around. But yeah, we're here to talk about the 10 greatest piano players, jazz piano players of all time. It's just that easy. Totally objective viewpoints we're going to get you. No, but really though, yeah, same as last time, right? We did saxophones last time. We touched on some of the big names. Of course, we cannot ignore them. We're going to jump in on those. And then we're going to get into the remainder of the list of our 10 choices will be, stuff that's more personal to Chris and I. So we're going to get in that too. And of course, we always want to know what you think. So don't forget to use that comment section. Let us know who your favorites are or why we're crazy or whatever. That'll be super fun. A couple things. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Looking forward to just same as last week, given our personal journeys with these artists. Definitely, we talked offline, strategically picked records that just mean a lot to us and artists that mean a lot to us to help people really embrace jazz and not be intimidated by it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect way to say it, right? Is that I said last time, we're not in our pipe and slippers, right? This is just having fun, just vibing out, talking about the stuff that touches us personally. And somewhere along the way, maybe we'll introduce someone to some great music. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We do have a couple things to take care of really quickly. So we did. Chris had a great idea last week. Is why don't we create a playlist for the artists and the records and the tunes that we talked about? It's done. So go check out the last video if you want to check out the playlist for saxophone players. The playlist is there. And this week we'll also have a playlist for pianos. And then as we go every week, we'll drop that playlist in the description and in the first comment of the video when that drops after we do it live. We haven't talked about it yet, so it's not up yet, but after this it will be. And then the next thing is super fun, dude. And this is another idea that Chris came up with, which is the idea for a fantasy draft. A jazz band fantasy draft. Dude, I'm just like, I can't even tell you. You saw my reaction. I was like, are you serious? That is the greatest idea I've ever heard. So we're going to tease that today at the end of the show. And next, what is it? A week from this Wednesday, right, Chris?
Next Wednesday.
We're doing a special show, not a Monday night show, so it won't interfere with these, but we're doing a special show. We have 2 special guests. I don't even want to, should I mention them? I don't think I should mention them. I think I'll wait. Maybe at the end we'll mention them.
Heavy hitters in the vinyl community for sure.
Heavy hitters in the VC, and I don't say VC very often, but I'm saying it here. Heavy hitters, heavy jazz hitters. Yes. So that'll be super fun a week from this Wednesday. So definitely check that out. I'll have that up ready to bookmark very soon. But today we'll give you a little taste, just a little taste of what that's going to look like. Chris and I will go through a little draft, a little fantasy draft, and kind of show you guys what's up with that. And then, the other thing I want to mention is just you guys will get involved with that at some point. So not only is it's not just something where you're going to sit there and observe it, you're going to be in the game. You're going to be able to make your own fantasy team, bands. Anyway, my mind is just blown just even thinking about it. So I'm super stoked for that. All right. Should we jump in, Chris? Are we ready to jump in?
I think so. And like always, as we did last week, I should say, we're going to kick it off with a GOAT, right?
Always the GOAT. All right, so I'll jump in here, and we each picked Thelonious Monk is our first goat. I should say that. I know that comes as a shock to most people, but yeah, man, I love Monk. Monk is someone that for me goes back. Well, I talked about it last time. When I first went to my dad and was like, I need jazz. Where should I start? He said Monk and Miles. Sent me off to the record store. Came home with a jazz record, and we might as well jump into it. Grabbed a Thelonious Monk. This is the record. And little did I know back then that I was messing with a great lineup here with Sonny Rollins on saxophone. I mean, this is just a fantastic record. This, I think, was pressed. When it first came out, it had a different cover on it. And so this is kind of the reissue cover on it. The other one's got Monk on the front. This one doesn't, but this is just a fantastic album. It's taken from two separate sessions from the early to mid 50s, I think 53 and 54, which I love because for the one thing about Monk that I'll say, dude, and I don't know if you agree, but is that when you start accumulating a lot of it, it might start to sound a little repetitive. He has his compositions and he just kind of like, okay, we get another version of that song here. It's live. It's a little different. It becomes almost like the Grateful Dead where it's like, I'm hearing St. Stephen into the 11 again. Nothing wrong with that. But at this point in time, I think, that a lot of that hadn't really come to pass yet. We're still hearing early, fresh kind of renditions of these tunes. Like We See, Hackensack. The only one that's not a Monk composition is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, obviously. But this is also kind of, you can pair this up with the one I showed last week, which is it got the red print on it, Sonny Rollins and Thelonious Monk. I like this one better. That one has Friday the 13th on it. That just slays. You have to have both for that reason. But he's just such a great composer, and I love that so much of this is just filled with his compositions. Just to talk a little bit about his compositions is that they just seem inevitable at this point in time. It's hard for me to imagine a world where without his compositions in it. They're just so great. They're so inevitable. They're so jazz, sort of jazz defining to me. Like when I hear Monk and he's playing all these crazy notes that seem out of key and just these crazy tempos and all of this stuff, it's like, that's jazz to me. You know what I mean? It's just so unusual and just so different, especially at the time. And most people will know the story. If you don't, like he was in obscurity, Monk, for a long time playing and people just didn't get it. And then finally he caught on and it was like, wow, this is jazz. He was just so far ahead of his time. So, I just don't think there's another piano player with more jazz in his bones and in his blood than Monk. My favorite track on this album is going to be Think of One, Take One. So you get two takes. You get take 1 and 2 on here. Take one, I guess, if I had to pick one, would be my pick. But anyway, so that's my Monk pick today. Is going to be the first Monk album I ever picked up right there, Prestige 7053. You could find this in a couple different covers, but it's well worth having. So that's my first one, Chris.
Good stuff. And yeah, Monk to me is part of my holy trinity of jazz, which I'll refer to quite often. It's Miles, Monk, and Coltrane. Those were the first three that I was exposed to, and they're very accessible because they're very popular. Monk to me is really the first hipster punk rock attitude musician I could really think of. I think to your point, he was in obscurity, had his own little personality, definitely grinded through playing and was finally recognized. The record I chose was his debut on Columbia. This is the first Monk record or Monk CD album I ever received or investigated. This is Monk's Dream. And if you really go through this record, it does play like a dream. I mean, this is a very accessible Monk piece. It has his signature, I want to say jagged playing style, atypical playing style. He's one of those players where as soon as he hits a couple of notes, you're like, that's the Thelonious one. So Monk's Dream was the first Monk record I got into, so that's why I chose this. One of the other great things about this record is that another guy who's really underappreciated in the jazz world, Charlie Rouse, plays sax on here. And he was also another Columbia artist who, he had a few albums, but certainly a strong session musician. and just totally dig this. This is his first album after Riverside, so he's coming off some of those great albums, accompanied by a lot of great tenor players, a lot of solo albums in that catalog, and Monk's Dream is just highly recommended. I believe this was 1963. I think some of the historians in the chat might be able to check me on that, but I think it was recorded 62 into 63, released 63, and really just a fantastic album, highly recommended.
I love that you brought up Charlie Rouse. Just real quick, is that if you watch the documentary on Monk, a really great one, I think it was
Straight No Chaser.
Is Clint Eastwood the guy that directed that? I think it is Straight No Chaser. Had a big director, but I can't remember if it was Clint Eastwood. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, Charlie Rouse plays a big part in that, and you really get to see their relationship in terms of like Rouse knew exactly Monk's personality, because we know he had an unusual personality, and he just knew what Monk they got to a point where he could pretty much read Monk's mind, right? And so that's a great little call out.
Yeah, I think Rouse was essential, and this goes back to a lot of our conversation last week, is that all these great sidemen come into play, and you start to see when you look at the catalog and the discographies, a lot of these guys play a key role in kind of propelling their career and their style. One of the other cool things you mentioned, kind of these jazz standards he's become known for. This is a really cool comp, which is I think 6 versions of Roundabout Midnight. You used to be able to grab this record in a dollar bin all the time. I don't know how easy it is to get now, but obviously Monk, Miles on here, Stan Getz, Bill Evans, Art Pepper in the 11, Ron Carter, all doing their take on Roundabout Midnight. This is a really cool compilation. And I wasn't going to show this, but I'm going to show it based upon your comment, just how he reworked his own standards over time. And you can see throughout his catalog, you kind of get different takes on some classic tunes. And you and I, being in the spirit of the Grateful Dead, we certainly love that. So Monk falls right in line with what we love. So that's my Monk pick for the week.
I love that. Thanks for showing that record, man. I wasn't even aware of that. I'm going to have to, you said dollar bin all day long. I better grab it quick before everyone else snags it. That is
highly
cool.
Overlooked.
Round Midnight. Very nice. Very nice. All right. So Thelonious Monk, the GOAT, of course, and it goes way back, I think, for both me and for a lot of people, right? And I like that you said accessible too, because for as sort of experimental as his playing is, it's still very accessible, right? It's not like some people where it's an acquired taste. It might be to some degree, but not to the extent of a lot of some of these other players. So yeah, love that one. All right, so next on the list, guys, is Herbie Hancock. And with Herbie Hancock, I love Herbie. I love all of his early stuff. I love the stuff he did. He's one of these guys that really mutated throughout the years, right, in the decades, and did that funky stuff in the 70s, the 60s and 70s, and then even got in the 80s, ended up on MTV with the song Rocket, right, with like scratching turntables and everything. So he's very innovative and always part of the times. But the record I picked is actually a Ron Carter record, and it's a trio. So you got Herbie on there and Tony Williams. So you got Anthony Williams on drums, Ron Carter on bass, Herbie on the keys. And I freaking love this. Part of the reason I had to pick this one, and I love it so much, is that All Music kind of pans it. They give it the 3-star routine. I'm like, no. I think I even commented like, you guys are crazy. This is just a great album, man. This has what I love about Herbie is he really brings interesting chord changes into it. And so a lot of times jazz can feel kind of atonal in the sense that like, yeah, there's a lot of things going on, but oftentimes it's like just kind of keying off of like a root note in a way. And here, what Herbie does and often does, and if you listen to his music, he really changes it up and makes it more interesting. It's almost like adding a bridge kind of here and there that just kind of makes it interesting and cool. And he does that here. Like I said last week about Bobby Hutcherson and Jackie McLean, how they really kind of have this symbiotic relationship. I feel that way about Ron Carter and Herbie. And when you listen to this record, you'll know what I mean. It's just, they just kind of fuse, and it just feels like, I don't want to say one instrument, one player. It's just like they're in the same groove. They're just mind melded and stuff. And it's really, really cool to listen to. sort of almost like I say this about Jackie McLean and Bobby Hutcherson. They seem like they're kind of born to play together, and I really get that sense with Ron Carter and Herbie. Oh yeah, and by the way, as I said, Tony Williams is on here, so it's just like what a massive trio. Anthony Williams, of course, played on Out to Lunch. He's just a phenomenal drummer. And so Herbie's just different from a lot of piano players, very accessible, but very unique in very subtle ways. Like I said, his chords are always fresh. It's like they're this much different from everyone else's chords. I'm listening to this today, and there's always a note that's just his. It's just different. It's just a Herbie chord somehow. And the way that he plays them, and the way, he plays with volume and tempo and all of those things it's really on point. And it was a joy listening to this back because I just love Herbie. Talking about his just subtle technique, but very unique to him. This whole album is fantastic. This record is going to be more of a vibe, I think. So this isn't like a series of tunes as much as it's kind of kicks it off with a vibe and it's just to chill out and vibe to. And the compositions are very, I guess, more loose in the sense that you're really listening to this for the vibe. But it's just another one of the endless kind of corners that Herbie gets into. And here's another one. I mean, you can just pick up 10 albums by Herbie that will all be different. They'll all be Herbie and they'll all be unique. And this is one. So I would not pass on this. If you go check out All Music, don't listen to the 3-star review, man. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. So yeah, that's my pick on Herbie. Third Plane. And it's a Ron Carter album, but he really stands out on this. And sort of like Out to Lunch, it's like 3 big leaders, right? And they all meld together. So anyway, I could go on forever about it. I really always try to hype this one when I can. It's so good.
Well, let's keep on going on that record. What year is that from? I've never heard of it.
So this one is, gotta lift the glasses on this one. When did this come out? It's a late-ish one. Oh my gosh. You're gonna have to let me look it up.
Oh, that's fine.
Sorry, I'm not prepared. I'll look it up.
All right, we'll check it out.
How dare you ask me such a hard question?
Well, you sold it so well. I feel like I need it now. So
I'm gonna find out for you. Let's put it that way. I'm gonna find out for you.
So staying with the theme of intros to artists, my first Herbie Hancock exposure, I guess back in the day, was the Greatest Hits CD. All right, but on that Greatest Hits CD, it had the original version of a tune that some of y'all might know called the Watermelon Man. So this is Herbie's Blue Note debut taken off, and some interesting things about this debut. First off, 1962, this was released. Herbie is 22 years old, merely a kid. Was a session musician or featured on some other projects, and I think Alfred Lyon produced this. He was involved with the production of this. He really took a chance on Herbie and said, "This kid's got something, so we're going to let him shine." Kind of what you're saying about interplay on some of these records. This lineup features 2 of my favorites. I think 2 of your favorites too, Jason. Freddie Hubbard and Dexter Gordon. And if you go through this record, I mean, Herbie has incredible compositions on this. Obviously, Watermelon Man being the quote unquote hit off this record. But he really gives space for Dexter and Freddie to really shine. And in a way, maybe that's part of his innocence, being such a young kid, putting this album together, is really taking a backseat to some of the veterans. So this is a really fantastic listen. Also, there's a great ballad at the end of this record called Alone and I. And whether you're a ballad person or not, I mean, that the way they close out this record after side B is closing out, it's just really incredible. Definitely worth a listen. Herbie's another guy where, to Jason's point, I love an artist where they have transcended genres. They have started off in one era and remained relevant really his whole career. And even doing, I know I showed like a Joni Mitchell tribute record he did, last week. And, through the 80s, through the MTV era, he was huge. He was huge in the 90s. with, at least in the jazz scene, and he's been featured on other people's records. He plays the famous piano solo on Stevie Wonder's "As," I think, right? So Herbie's completely accessible. And in the spirit of what you mentioned about Monk, I had this as a backup plan just in case. But this is the record you were talking about, Headhunters.
Ooh.
And this is also got a version of Watermelon Man on it. Now, this might be an unpopular opinion, but for me, the definitive Watermelon Man is the first version off the Blue Note release. But the second one,
you heard it here first.
So yeah, Herbie is surely one of the GOATs. Should be recognized, easily accessible to people who may be curious about jazz or don't know where to start. Highly recommend Taking Off.
Absolutely, great pick. 1977, folks. 1977.
So that's cool. That's in that.
A really great way to kind of, dip your, and I think I said this last week, like Herbie's one of those guys that's easy to listen to if you're someone that's kind of in the late 50s, 60s corner listening to your jazz. You can really expand with someone like Herbie, I think, and really get a different flavor, but still feel like you got both feet on the ground.
Yep. There's multiple entry points. You don't have to start early and move your way forward. You can come in any place with Herbie, for sure.
Yep, I love it. Herbie. All right, Monk and Herbie. There's no way we could talk about piano players without those two guys. Well, my next one, am I right in the order here? I was going to bring up Mal Waldron. We're good, right?
Another GOAT.
Another GOAT, Mal Waldron. But a piano player maybe a lot of people would not know necessarily. But here he is on Eric Dolphy at the 5 spot. So you get Dolphy as well on here. Booker Little, Richard Davis, Eddie Blackwell on here. So the first thing you got to know is Eric Dolphy just slays on this. This is another one I had spinning today. And man, it's so freaking good. The great thing about this one, and something that really kind of stands out to me ever since I first heard it, going back 25 years, is that the record, the piano at the 5 spot is out of tune on here, famously. And you'll hear it as soon as you hear Mal start playing. And Mal Waldron does not shy away from it for a freaking second. He is such a superhero that he lays into those keys and just makes them his own. And it's just unbelievable. He plays on the last solo on the track. I wrote it down. What track was it? Well, yeah, about 2/3 of the way through. He on, darn it, what is the tune? Sorry. So well prepared here. I thought I wrote it down. The track is, and you should listen to this, if nothing else I tell you. How come I don't see it? Am I even holding the right record? Fire Waltz. Nice long track, 13 minutes, 24 seconds. Waldron comes in after the other soloist. Dolphy plays, Booker plays, and then Waldron comes in and he starts slamming those keys, man, on that piano. It is unbelievable. The drums are unbelievable, man. It's just such a groove you will get into. It is such a groove. And just more exciting for me that he is working this piano into submission. He's like, like a lion tamer with a freaking chair and a whip. And he's just like, I'm just telling you, he slays out on it. It's so freaking good. And like I said, the rhythm section is just on lock. A lot of people like these 5-spot records, and they deserve the love that they get, man. They're very, very good. And a great entry into Dolphy. I think this is probably one of the first Dolphy records I heard, and it will kind of lube you up for like an out to lunch to come a little later on. But yeah, I mean, that's my Waldron pick. I mean, he's got a lot of great records, obviously. I think the out-of-tune piano on here just completely adds to the performance instead of taking away from it, because it just shows you how, I don't know, just how much of a master Mal Waldron is. So love this one. Check out Fire Waltz. It is worth the price of admission. Nice long track. Mal Waldron. I mean, that's all I can say. Again, I could go on all night, but I'll cap it off there.
Well, I mean, that's the spirit of jazz, though, right? expect the unexpected and turn it into something incredible. So that's a really
Right.
cool story. I didn't know that tidbit about the piano being out of tune. I just assumed that's how Mal wanted to play it that night. So
Yeah.
that's pretty interesting. The other thing too is those live at the 5 Spot records all sound great.
Yeah.
Great sounding albums, especially for a live gig. So we're in sync tonight, man. This is the first Mal Waldron record I ever heard, and fortunately for me, they just reissued this as a OJC classic, and that's Mal Waldron, The Quest, which for my list tonight, this is the most perfectly named album in my selection, and I'll explain why in a moment. But this is a record with Dolphy. You're going to hear a lot of Dolphy talk. We will work Dolphy into as much talk as possible, and Booker Urban. And the reason why I love this record is that this toes on the edge of avant-garde. I think that you have avant-garde style players pushing boundaries with their playing, but it's completely accessible and it's a great record. Now, I think it's named fantastic because it really does sound like a quest. This album is one of these albums where it's almost like a soundtrack to the imagery in your mind when you listen to it. It evokes emotion of suspense, ups and downs, just different emotions as you're going through a journey. I feel like you get with this record. And the other interesting thing I find about this album is all of these musicians that I tend to love, in their brilliance, they have no ego. This is a record of Dolphy and Irvin just dueling and having conversation, and Waldron just plays this perfect backdrop the whole time. The band is tight. If you're gonna get into this, is another gateway, like with Jason's pick. This is another easy gateway to experience some Dolphy. I think Dolphy at its finest, and Mal Waldron just really being a catalyst for Dolphy's genius. But again, Mal Waldron, The Quest, beautiful record. And what do you know? Ron Carter's on this album, not on bass though, on cello, which is also an interesting vibe. So
that's a good call out too, man. He's so good on cello. One of the few guys that will explore the cello. Really, really cool.
Yeah. I feel like you could play a game with Ron Carter like you do with Kevin Bacon. 6 degrees of separation with Ron Carter.
Totally. Well, in jazz, I think there's a lot of guys you could probably do that with, right?
That's true.
Man. That's good though. Yeah, Ron Carter would be a big one. That's cool, man. I always, any opportunity to talk about Mal Waldron, I'm all for it. All right, let's keep going down the list, man. So next up, we got a little Ahmad Jamal, and this one is At the Black Hawk. If I'm being honest, I don't really want to talk about this one that much. There's a great one, a great live record. I only knew it from streaming it, but it has come out on vinyl, I guess. I don't know if it's been more recently or what. But that record is called Ahmad's Blues. And that's a fantastic one. In fact, when I knew I was going to talk about it today, I was like, I better go buy it now. So I ordered one today, just so I could play it, because I love it. That is my favorite Ahmad Jamal record. He has a lot of great live stuff. The way I talk about Ahmad Jamal, and this is going to sound like not flattering, but I sort of think of him as the greatest cocktail bar nightclub piano player of all time. And I don't think it's that far of a stretch, because so much of his stuff is recorded in live clubs, and there's a lot of glass clinking and stuff going on in the background. But even stylistically, I would say he's I would call him the most accessible piano player in my list today. Just very, very accessible for anyone. I think very sort of mainstream, could be perceived that way. Even if he's not mainstream, I think his playing could very easily cross into other streams. He's very swinging. He's very finger popping, and just easy to listen to. And he has a way of playing sort of big and small, because he has a lot of his style is very eclectic. He can sit there and play massive chords that just sound like you're hearing a big symphony. And like in the same bar, he'll just start tinkling on the high key. You know what I mean? It's like it's very cool, his style. Kind of like another person that I think of is like Jackie Byard, who sort of plays, is just very much, can play basically any style, can play, block chords, can play, solo and sound like, a big symphony, something, a classical player. And I think Ahmad is kind of in that realm. I really love what he does with the song April in Paris on this one. It's obviously that's a standard, but it's very improvised and very swinging. I think if I was going to go to this record, that's the one I would call out. But if you're someone that has not stepped in on the Ahmad Jamal landmine yet, I would say check out Ahmad's Blues, and you can stream it and or get the CD. I think the vinyl is a little tougher to get. I feel pretty fortunate I got one today. But Autumn Leaves is the one on there. It will have you vibing. I mean, the rhythm section is just locked in, and Ahmad is doing his thing. It's very, very cool. So that's the one I want to call out. I don't have it. This one's great too. And then I'll pass it off to Chris, who I'm sure has a great one as well. But yeah, that's my take on Ahmad Jamal.
Yeah, but I love that our first four, or we always label as the GOATs, and I think they're pretty atypical. And I think that just shows what we're trying to accomplish here. Really expose people. Like, you don't want the cookie cutter list. Like, take our journey as one way of getting in. Now, Ahmad Jamal, for me, he's probably my favorite trio leader ever. When you get him into a trio, I don't think there's anything else I want to hear more than Ahmad Jamal. And that's a pretty bold statement if you go through some of the rosters in jazz history. But what really did it for me here is if I had to make a list of like 50 albums that changed my life, Ahmad Jamal's Awakening is on here. I take it back. Everything that might have been considered non-flattering right now, just looking at that record. This is a masterpiece. It has many connections to so many aspects of music that I love. The way you described Ahmad Jamal is very similar to the way I'm going to describe him. I think he's a very tame roller coaster with a lot of peaks and valleys. He can build you up and play a lot of notes and be very melodic, and then totally ease you back down, keeping a sweet melody, keeping a good groove, and really driving the music home. Could sound very big, could sound very small, but always on point. Now, I guess we call them standards in the jazz world, but I call them covers because I'm just a music guy in general. But he does a lot of covers on here, or standards, but he does Herbie's Dolphin Dance, so bringing it back.
Yes.
And he also does Oliver Nelson's Stolen Moments, which are ridiculous on here. This was released in 1970. For me, there's this crucial time period, and I'm not an expert historian on eras, but there's this vibe between like 67 to 70, 71 before Miles really turned the world upside down, where these records, to me, are a really good place for people to enter into the jazz world because they do have some rock and pop sensibility at some point. It's not this record specifically, but this is very accessible stuff. Now, being a New York kid, there's also great hip hop reverence with this album because Pete Rock sampled Ahmad Jamal on Nas's The World Is Yours off his Illmatic album. So as kids, when we were looking through hip hop samples, we also got exposed to this, and we're like, who is Ahmad Jamal? There's another piano player on my list later that I'm going to talk about that I think is sorely overlooked. And that person is probably second only to Ahmad Jamal. I feel like he went through maybe a decade or a decade and a half of obscurity and got his credit too late. And I think in hindsight, he's one of these artists where you kind of don't understand why he didn't pop as a bigger name. And Jason, I agree with you. This is a great record. It's a great studio album. It should be had. I had a version that was gifted to me by somebody close, so I have another version of it. But this is one of the all-time jazz classics. Definitely one of the 50 records that changed my life.
Very nice.
And then I like to bring this one up because I was a little disturbed by your opening comments about Billy Joel being a great jazz piano player. But this is a cool record. This is just
I think I actually said the GOAT. So, but yeah,
the GOAT, right? So this is a later Ahmad Jamal record. I picked this up because it has a Black Cow cover, Steely Dan cover, and there is a cover of Just the Way You Are by Billy Joel, and it's really the only time I can stomach it when Ahmad Jamal is playing the keys on this. So just want to throw that out there. It's another budget record you could pick up probably for a couple of bucks, and it's a cool listen.
The Billy Joel shade is running rampant. All right, that's cool, man. That's cool. Yeah, you had to bring that one up. That one has also been reissued within the last couple of years, although sort of infamously. It's funny because I did a review of it when it first came out. I just started my YouTube channel and I thought, I'm going to be first to review this record. And my copy is fantastic. So I talked about how great the pressing is. This is a fantastic, mastering and all this stuff. And then people were just like, no, this record sucks. It can't, and then if you go look at like Discogs, it's really 50-50. And there's just some records that are like that, right? It's just that the quality control's not there and stuff. And I feel I got lucky. A lot of people got lucky. Some people didn't get lucky. Kind of unfortunate, but yeah, fantastic record.
Well, for the record guys in the audience and gals in the audience, is it the Be With reissue that you got? Or is it?
It was the third man pressing. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have the third man. I have the Be With. This was pressed, got totally sucked up in the marketplace, and then was reissued once. This is a good pressing of it. But I've never heard an original. I don't have the money for original, and I'm not going to go seek an original. This is fine for me. But I agree with you. Those third man ones, not to go off on too much of a vinyl tangent, but first off, they're titles that should be in print. There's no arguing that. And if people are going to access those titles, I think it's better to have them in the marketplace than not have them in the marketplace. But I've had mixed reviews on those pressings. Some are fantastic. Some are just unlistenable. You can find another version you can. But regardless of what version you get, stream, get somebody to record it for you on a cassette tape if you're old school, a CD. Ahmad Jamal, The Awakening.
Little mixtape
is essential. Essential.
Well, it's funny you mentioned an OG too, man, because that record specifically is a record. And this happens, right? The story is I go into my local, and that is sitting there right in the front. It's like $50. This is going back a few, I don't know, maybe 5 years or something now. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. $50? That seems a little high, So I'm like, it'll be here. It'll be here. And nope, it got picked up. And then I was like, oh, FOMOing out. Oh, now I have to have it. I can't believe I missed out on that. And I started looking at prices online, and it was kind of going up and up and up and up. And I keep thinking, I'll wait. Man, lessons learned. And it kills me because I'm like, I could have had a nice copy of that, for a really affordable price, original, and sometimes you just have to grab it when you see it, man, if you can, because it's almost worse to have it, even if you pay up a little bit, to have it and not have to want it than to miss out on it and then just be like, I'd rather have the record than the $50 now 5 years later. You know what I mean?
100%. And now we just skyrocketed the price even more because 2 experts,
yeah, exactly.
Us, pushing the way. That's it for the Discogs community. What's up, Caesar?
All right. So I love talking, man. I really love talking about Mal Waldron. The Ron Carter with Herbie record is another one I love to talk about. This is another one I love to talk about when I can, which is not very often. This is Chick Corea, and Chick Corea in his band Circle. And so this is a band that lasted just about 2 years that came out of, I think, his trio right before this. And this record is amazing. However, be prepared. This is not going to be as accessible as any of the other guys we mentioned. This is very avant-garde and very out there, but it pays off. It's well worth the trouble. If you're someone that's good with that, I would say you don't know about Circle One. This one, he did a few different records for Circle. This is Circle One live in Germany, which is the one I recommend. And you're good with some avant-garde, you're good with a little bit more freer playing, you will love this. If you're not someone, then I would say tread lightly, but this can definitely break you into something like that. This came out in he was active in 70, 71. I think this is probably 71, not sure, but one of those 2 years. Korea's playing, he's another one he's got diverse hands when it comes to piano, but this one's going to be very complex, but also very beautiful. It's very, I don't know. It's awesome to hear him playing on here. I love Chick Corea anyway, but if you listen closely on this, and I've sat down and listened to this critically, and I guess I'm gonna get into it a little bit critically, because it is a little more advanced than some of the other stuff we talked about. But if you listen closely, you can follow his left hand technique, his right hand technique, and you'll be rewarded with the way he resolves the roots of chords. And if you know a little bit, it's like, we always know, we hear it and the chord sounds off, and especially in jazz. And then they hit that chord you're waiting for. It kind of resolves the root. But the way he does that here is very creative. Sometimes that root note will be in the scale will be like in the middle of what he's playing somewhere. And I don't know how I'm trying to do the best I can with a little bit of knowledge, which is dangerous, but it's just so satisfying because it's not like everything else. It's far from, but the rewards that come, it's like a Dolphy in a way. It's like a lot of people will avoid Dolphy. They don't want to, it's like they don't feel comfortable with, I don't want to say doing the work, but you got to work up to it. And for those that do put in the work, it's like you come away with a whole new understanding and you love it and you have to hear every single note. This record is like that. For this one, I'd say just get comfortable. This one, you can put your pipe and slippers in if you want to, or just, kick your feet up, turn out the lights, put this on. It's going to take you on a trip. So Circle One live in Germany concert, very avant-garde, very sort of complex playing, but very rewarding. It's just a fantastic Chick Corea record, and kind of a great place maybe that a lot of people haven't gone when you're going with Chick Corea. This is kind of a maybe be new frontier for you. So anyway, that's my pick today. Circle One live in Germany concert, Chick Corea.
Jason, can we wrap on Chick Corea for a second? I have some questions.
Absolutely.
So I am a novice Chick Corea listener. I just haven't really got around to him yet. And I did find, like, kind of going through what albums to pick, like, it's one of these guys kind of like Herbie where you could throw a dart at a dartboard and be in, a different style every dart you throw.
Yeah.
So is that, I don't know if you know this, but that being a live album, is there studio versions of those songs as well? Or is that strictly just kind of like a live performance? Because, I guess going back to some of the roots of the other music that we like, there's a big difference between the studio takes and the live takes in a lot of the bands that we enjoy. So I'm wondering if he's got that approach to him, because I'd maybe want to start there rather than the studio versions. But
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure. My guess is that these are all going to be compositions that were put together for Circle, and a lot of the stuff for Circle, I'm not 100% sure. I think they did 3 or 4 albums. I'm pretty sure most of them are going to be live, if not all. My sense is that they're not really available in the studio, but I could be wrong. I'd have to look that up. But like his stuff with Edge of Forever is kind of accessible. Some of those are some of the great sort of very highly regarded records. His stuff with Edge of Forever that are very, very good and also very different, very unique studio records. This is almost like going to the symphony or something. It's kind of like it's really, really cool. It's an experience of all in its own. And I'll be honest, I'm not that deep into, I love Chick Corea and I do have a handful of his things. I don't know if this stuff has been, released some other way. I get the sense it's not. But yeah, so it's really kind of its own thing. I would say, even if you were to get into Chick Corea in different ways, this is kind of a corner of his universe that's a little bit different. I mean, yeah, listening to his stuff might get you lubed up for it, but this is kind of a whole other experience.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely invest.
Oh, Return to Forever. Thank you, Wyoming Dave. Return to Forever. Right.
Oh, Wyoming Dave is on top of things.
He's on point.
Who, if you don't know this, that's cool. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to anyway, because I love you. Who's in that band with him? Anybody notable that you know of? Wasn't familiar with these guys except on here. We got, let me see who we got here. Of course, I have the Japanese press. You got Anthony Braxton
on reeds and percussion. You got David Holland on bass and cello. You got Barry Altschul on drums and percussion. So not guys I'm overly familiar with, but they play very well together.
Awesome. Yeah, Dave Holland definitely heard of. So I'm going to check that out. Circle. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly some of these guys come out of his earlier bands and stuff. So people that are a little more familiar than I am with Chick Corea, he's someone I listen to. I'll be honest, like there's music I listen to that I don't necessarily get into all of the. I don't go to the Wikipedia and I'm not always reading the back of the covers. I just know I love it, you know. So that he's one of those guys for me. I don't have all the knowledge around Chick Corea's career and stuff, but I mean, he's such a great player. I talk about him whenever I can.
Yeah, I got a lot of artists like that too. I just love them. I don't know the history. Plus, you've spent so much time becoming a Dolphy expert that you don't really have time to.
Yeah, you don't have time to get into everybody. I'll be honest. Yeah.
So one of the picks I'm going to talk about is really a legend. Really supported a legend for a long time, and that is McCoy Tyner. This is the real McCoy. Now, you could go a lot of places with McCoy Tyner from his solo work. Obviously, he had a tremendous impact on Coltrane's quartet. I chose this album, another album that's titled fantastically, because this is the first release after he left Coltrane's quartet. So this is 1967. So this is, late 60s Blue Note. This is, and by the way, I know I'm doing a good job when Caesar gives the nod of approval. So shout out to Caesar. This is an extremely emotional album. Happy, sad, frantic. McCoy plays like a freight train on this. I'm not a musician, but in listening to him play with Coltrane, I always felt that everybody was just, and rightfully so, maybe a step behind Coltrane, trying to keep up, right, in their compositions. To me, this is a record where McCoy gets to shine as a leader. Now, this also has a great lineup. I don't know if you've heard of this guy on bass, Ron Carter. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He's on this album. Elvin Jones.
Ooh.
Yeah, on drums. So a couple sledgehammers just rocking the room. And then a guy I talked about last week who I love, the most underrated sax player in jazz history, Joe Henderson. So this is a tailor-made album for me and my liking. There is a freedom about this. And I don't know the history. I'm enticed to read up about it. I don't know if he had a falling out with Coltrane. I don't know if it just ran its course and Coltrane was going in a different direction. But when you listen to his work with Coltrane and they go through this period and then he flies right off into his solo work, I feel like there's a sense of release here. And this is one of the guys where if you put him in your band, your band is that much better. If you put him as a leader, it's going to be close to a masterpiece. So that's why I chose McCoy Tyner. Again, the real McCoy. So back to album titles. One other thing, I can't believe I didn't mention this. I think this is a perfect album title. He leaves the quartet and his first solo album is called The Real McCoy, kind of a message like, hey, this is what I can do. Let me show you my stuff. And this is a great listen. Great listen.
Yeah, that's an awesome pick, man. McCoy. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Next on the list here, brought this guy up last week. We're going to go a little bit old school, but also a very diverse player. But I think a lot of us maybe know part of his work, but he had such a long career. But I got to talk about Count Basie. And a lot of my jazz roots kind of started here in a lot of ways. And this album is live at the Sands before Frank. So a lot of people will know the Frank Sinatra record from the Sands or at the Sands with Basie's band supporting him. These are recordings that came out much later where I don't know, they either discovered or just never got pressed, where the Basie band played before Frank would come out. And so during the residency that they had at the Sands, and I think this is 1966, when they performed together, the Basie band would come out, they'd play a set, and then Frank would come out, and then they'd play a set. And so those Frank sets are on the very famous record at the Sands, or again, I forget the exact title, but it's Sinatra at the Sands or something like that. And that's a fantastic album as well. But these are unbelievable. This came out, Original Master Recordings put this out. It is digital for whatever reason. I don't know if they lost the masters or whatever happened. It doesn't matter. It sounds phenomenal. And it's double LP of all this great material from one of Basie's best bands, all recorded before Frank would hit the stage. So just really awesome stuff. This is, as I said, one of Basie's best bands and rhythm sections. And it's a big band. I mean, we have stuff that we hear on here that is just very original, like, muted trumpets, but also just other really interesting instrumentation. I shouldn't say interesting instrumentation, but just high level playing of instruments we've heard before. I think, Basie as a piano player sort of really developed an economical style. I think most people that know about Basie will know he's one of the most well-regarded piano players that played the fewest amount of notes. He's just he very sparse when he plays. He hasn't always been that way, and he's got a lot of technique. You can hear early stuff of his where he's playing like stride impeccably and can play a lot of notes, but he just kind of went into he kind of developed his own style. But, and his compositions are fantastic. I don't know how much of a composer he was, as much as that he always was working with the right people to get some fantastic compositions. And I'm blanking. Who produced Thriller?
Quincy Jones.
Yes, Quincy Jones did a lot of Basie stuff and compositions, and also Quincy Jones' roots are in the Basie band, where he played trumpet for Basie. So anyway, little history there. This album's phenomenal. I mean, if you can find it, you don't even need to find a physical copy. Like, you can stream this. It's really, really cool. Making Whoopi is on here and is the most sensitive, beautiful rendition of that song. I can't even listen to it without tearing up. It is so, so good. So Count Basie, he comes up in a lot of ways. He did a ton of stuff. He's played with a lot of different people, a lot of singers, especially. He's backed singers and stuff like that. Just quickly to show, this is another one called Fantail. This is a lot like the record Atomic Basie, which a lot of people will probably know more. I like this one. This is more smaller band stuff. It's kind of a cornucopia of different styles. There's some scatting on here. But man, I freaking love this on the Roulette label, which did a lot of Basie stuff. April in Paris, 1 O'Clock Jump. So it's a lot of things that you think about as being a lot of his kind of standards, the stuff that Basie did, done very differently. And it's just a great one. So Fantail as well. Those are 2 Desert Island records for me, man. I just love those. So yeah, that's whatever number we're on now, 4 or 5, but that's my Basie pick.
I love that you picked Basie because I know how much he means to you. And as a side, the Roulette label is one of the great visual labels ever, right? That's such a cool stamper that they put on there.
Well, and the funny thing about Roulette that maybe a lot of people don't know too is that was like a front for gangster activity. That was like,
oh really?
Yeah, like there was like, I don't remember all the details, but you guys can look it up. It's either a gangster started it or something, and it was really, I want to say, kind of a front for a while, and then I think someone else acquired it. But in the very early days, man, that was like, I imagine it as being like just one of these like shady, like, the record label on the front, and then in the back is where all the shady stuff was happening. But so you can look that up. It's like there definitely was a gangster roots in that record label, and there might be in other record labels that we, if you really looked them up. So yeah,
that's cool. That's a cool tidbit. In the spirit of you picking Basie and how much it means to you, I'm going to pick a very accessible record, which is kind of a layup, but this is also one of my early entry points to jazz, and I think it's, from like an American cultural standpoint, probably one of the most important jazz records ever. It'll probably be on a lot of like, top 500 album lists and whatnot. And the record is the Dave Brubeck Quartet, Time Out. And
there
those of you kind of new to jazz or curious about jazz, everybody, everybody has heard Take Five at least once or twice in their life, which was written by the saxophone player on this, Paul Desmond. But this record had a profound influence on me, besides making it accessible through Take Five. The record's called Time Out because it's in a very odd time signature, which I had no idea how to identify at the age that I was listening to this as a, preteen or teenager when I found it. But what I found for me is that I think that this had a significant impact on some of the jam band scenes of my generation. On this record, there's a lot of odd time signatures, a lot of build up, a lot of sharp changes that when I go see some of the bands that I love live, I feel like really take from this record. And in fact, I've seen some of those bands cover Take Five, which is pretty cool. So this is kind of, yeah, it's obviously a jazz album. It's even though it's an odd time signature, it's a lot of fun to listen to. The playing is phenomenal. Brubeck's a great composer. Paul Desmond's a great composer and a tight player. And for me, this also has a sense of cool jazz to it, lounge jazz in a way, upbeat lounge jazz, but also like a little bit of like a college feel to it. I feel
Hmm.
like if I was in college when this came out, like this would be something I would spin in my dorm room and feel cool with. So this is a timeless record, and from what I know about Brubeck's history, I don't know much about him specifically, but I feel like he toured extensively in his career, especially around the time that this album came out. So, um, you know, this is like, if you're going to give somebody a starter pack on jazz, this has to be one of the 5 records, that you have to have. But it's sorely underrated. Because I think it's so popular that people overlook its brilliance. From a sound perspective, many great versions of this record sounds absolutely incredible and engulfs you, whether you listen to a digital stream on headphones, speakers, whatever the case may be. Like this record is just phenomenal. All of you watching, some of my friends out there are not into jazz but curious, this is one you got to try, got to get, and just start with Take Five if you're unsure, and then just go to the rest of the record. It's just absolutely phenomenal. So,
Well, it's funny you
my
mentioned the
second,
college connection too, because doesn't he have a couple other records that actually are either recorded at college? The college is part of the title, right? It's like I can't think of what they are right now, but I have a few of them where it's like some college connection, whatever it is. So definitely there was some college connection there.
yeah, I feel like Goes to College or something, or maybe that's the Rodney Dangerfield movie. I'm not sure, or
There
whatever.
you go.
But yeah, he just has like to me I'm not a jam band fanatic. You and I have talked about some of the bands that I love, but I just feel there's that influence there from him, and I just get reminded of like him. I just picture him playing live and going berserk,
Yeah.
or just people being excited to go see him because of the style of music he played. So, but I have a lot of Brubeck. I do have a couple live albums. Obviously, Live at Carnegie is the big one, but I think there is a couple of live college albums. I have to go back and look. Maybe Wyoming Dave knows.
I'm sure Wyoming Dave knows. Come on, Dave. Yeah, that's a great one. And it's funny that you say that too, because I think Brubeck's someone that I avoided. I think when you
Yeah.
start getting into jazz and you start feeling like you're getting a little bit of experience and you're trying to find those corners that are a little more esoteric and you just kind of keep avoiding certain things. It's like, look, here's Brubeck. And you're like, nah, nah, nah. And you're trying to get into, deeper and deeper into some other rabbit hole that you think is, I don't know. But yeah, Brubeck
Well,
is someone that I avoided for a long time, and then I had a chance to pick up an OG of that record right there, and they're not that expensive. There's so many. Those things were pressed by the millions because, like you said, that was like a very very popular record when it came out. So you can pick those up fairly cheaply. But yeah, so I got that, and I said I need to listen to the whole thing now, and I did, and I was like, okay, everything
well,
whatever preconceptions I had were totally unwarranted.
well, that's the point. Like, it's like a lot of people get into jazz, and it's like it is a cool thing to investigate because it's kind of this music that's frozen in time. It hasn't really Nice, Wyoming Dave. It hasn't really. It still exists, but not to the greatness, in my opinion, that it has existed in the past. It's overwhelming. If you look at any of the top 50 artists catalog, they're endless. There's very few that stop, and usually they stop because their life ended, right? Um, and it is kind of like a hipster thing to say, like, oh, Brubeck, he's like too common, but it's essential. Like Brubeck's gonna take you to places and other artists that you're gonna enjoy. And to go off and say, like, oh, that's too mainstream for me, like, we don't have to be like that. Like everybody should have that record. Everybody should experience it. And you should investigate Brubeck beyond, beyond just time out and take
Right.
five. So but yeah, I get it. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, you're selling yourself short. And I don't know. I'm going to say we all go through it. I'm not saying we all go through it, but many of us go through it. There's a lot of every genre that I can think of bands where it was like, I'll get to that later. I have more important things to do or whatever. Like you said, hipster. Maybe that's what it is. It's like, but anyway. So yeah, Dave Brubeck, man, definitely worth checking out. And that is a fantastic album. All right. So I'm about to open a massive can of worms right here. I'm going to stay in my lane and I'll just kind of get into my experience with this person. This guy is named Sun Ra, and a lot of people will know Sun Ra. And Sun Ra is someone that's, I think, really gotten some legs recently. And I say recently, maybe the last 10 years or so. I'm driving in my car one day, going to work or something back. I don't know when it was, probably late 90s. And there was a college jazz channel in the Bay Area in California where I lived, and I was listening. I think it was like a Sunday, and they pick an artist and they play that music. And they were playing some music. I didn't know what it was, but it was like, this is my life now. I just heard 3 notes and I'm like, what? And so back then you would call the radio station, which I did. I think I pulled over to a payphone or something. And I'm like, who is this artist you're playing? And what is the track you played like 20 minutes ago? And they said, oh, we're playing Sun Ra today. And we're playing his new record, The Singles. So it was going to be something off that. And I said, thank you very much. I did not, if I was going to work, I took a detour and went to Berkeley to one of the big record stores there, either Rasputin's or Amoeba, and I picked up the CD set of this. On vinyl, it's 2 volumes. Each volume is 3 records, so you get 6 records right there. This, I would not recommend people start here, even though I did. I mean, this is the stuff that I heard. It's very experimental. It's different. It's very garage band sounding. Like if a jazz band could be a garage band, this is it. And if I remember correctly, and I haven't read these liner notes for however long ago that was, 20 something years ago, these were recorded for shows that live shows. And similarly to how, and unless I'm mixing my stories up, to like how punk bands might do it, putting out 45s and issuing them at the shows and stuff like that. To put this collection together, they had to curate the whole world trying to find like collectors that might have some of these because they're very, very rare. And a lot of people who know Sun Ra know that. Even his LPs, his OGs are extremely rare and collectible. Sun Ra is fantastic multi-instrumentalist. He plays piano. A lot of people will know him from synth or synth and organ playing. And it kind of depends on the era. He crosses over throughout the years, but in a way he kind of starts out playing more traditional jazz, calling it traditional only in relationship to what he was doing later, where he played more piano and stuff like that. And then he got really, really experimental as he progressed through his career. He's a fantastic composer. He's another one that had composed a lot of the tunes on the records that he put out. Another one I got to show you. So these are the singles again. These are very kind of unique, but it is a nice little cross section of his stuff. You're going to find stuff like doo-wop, spoken word. So I would say, if I was going to recommend this, I would say it's going to be more for the completionist. However, like I said, this is where I started. I just don't want to recommend that for other people. If I was going to start with Sun Ra, I would say something like this. This is a nice little compilation of stuff, a cross section of a bunch of his records called In the Orbit of Ra. It's 2 LPs. It came out not too long ago. It's available. It's affordable. It is a great place to jump into Sun Ra. My favorite track of Sun Ra's, as I'm trying to kind of, we still got a fantasy game to get to, so I've got to wrap this up. But my favorite,
take your time. Take your time. I want to know about Sun Ra, man. I really want to know about Sun Ra.
That's right. We talked about this a little bit. My favorite thing. So I really, the thing about Sun Ra, a lot of his playing is going to be, again, it's going to be synthesizers and organs and, unusual sounding stuff. He claimed to be from Saturn. Am I right? Or was it Jupiter? Now I'm going to get faded on that, but one of those planets. And so his stuff is really out there. And a lot of the track titles, Rocket, I should have prepared better. Rocket to Venus or something like that, right? Anyway, it's otherworldly. But some of the stuff that's more straightforward jazz, where he's playing piano, is really beautiful. In a way, it's almost like if you've heard some of the stuff that Mingus has done on piano. I'm saying Ra was more capable than Mingus, but he plays very raw. He's not refined in the way that he plays, but it's beautiful because it's raw. You know what I mean? It's like that. Again, I kind of compare it to like that punk rock sound. Another person I compare it to, and I haven't heard it, I've looked to see if I could find this comparison, and I haven't. Frank Zappa. I was into Zappa for a few years before I discovered Ra, and one of the first things I thought of was Frank. I was like, there's a lot of Frank's music that kind of goes in this avant-garde direction in a unique way, like Sun Ra does. There's a record. It is not on vinyl, unfortunately. I wish they would press it on vinyl. It is called Somewhere Else. You can find it on, I think they have a CD for it. You can stream it. There's a song on there called Tall Trees in the Sun. It's kind of an A side and a B side put together. I forget what the first side of that is called. The first half of the track is very avant-garde. It will sound like, another reason it makes me think of Frank Zappa. If you know Frank's early stuff from the 60s, where they would just kind of play these sound stages that were he would like ugly music, just a lot of just different things going on. It's always almost meant to just be a sensory overload. Frank would do that in a lot of live shows during the 60s. Ra does that too. And he does that on this track. And then you get into this track called Tall Trees in the Sun. And it just like slows down and it gets beautiful. And his playing, again, it's very sparse. It's a small sample size, but I freaking love that track. It is so cool. It sounds very raw, like I said. It's very garage punk band. I mean, the instruments a lot of times in Ra's, and I mean, if you're an expert, correct me if I'm wrong, but my ear's pretty good. A lot of times it'll sound like a lot of the instruments can be out of tune. And I feel like that's intentional. It can almost make you feel like you're listening to your high school band at a football game or something, except in a very more sophisticated way. So yeah, I'll kind of leave you with that. I mean, it's just Ra is a very diverse musician, a very diverse composer. There's a lot going on. There's people that are way bigger experts than I am in this, since now it's very academic with Ra these days and stuff, and he's become so collectible. Yeah. But I love him. If I was going to start scratch, I would do this. Once you get a flavor for that, I'd say explore some different things. The 6 records of music on these singles is fantastic, but also check out the song Tall Trees in the Sun on Somewhere Else. That's all I got.
So I have neglected Sun Ra purposely because I'm scared of the rabbit hole that I will go down. I know me, I will not listen to anything else, and I'll just want to be a madman on him for months. I think your Zappa comparison is accurate from what I know I've heard of Sun Ra, and it's backed by 2 very good friends of mine who, one unfortunately passed a couple of years ago, but another from my friend Bob, who's an authority on Zappa and digs Sun Ra just the same, and they've both made those comparisons. And so I think there's strong reverence there. I get the feeling too that Sun Ra has this loyal following like a band like the Residents has, or
For sure.
like Zappa. They have like these people that are really into his music, and it is very academic. From that standpoint, where if you like Ra, Ra, and you are Ra to the fullest. But yeah,
Right.
I'm almost there. I'm ready to take the plunge, and like I think I told you offline a couple of days ago, Trey Anastasio and John Fishman from Fish did a project in the '90s called "Surrender to the Air," which featured a lot of members of the Sun Ra Orchestra. So it's in my orbit. It's just on the peripheral, and I gotta really get into Sun a little bit more. So I'm glad you
Uh,
brought him up, and I think I just love that you went deep with a couple of selections, because I took some notes. I don't know where I'm going to start, but I might be reaching out to you.
I have a terrible story about Sun Ra since you mentioned how his band still does perform. Um, and so my girlfriend, knowing that I love Sun Ra, bought tickets because we were gonna,
Mhm.
I think it might have been my birthday or something. I can't remember what it was, but she goes, I got tickets for Sun Ra. It was like when they first came out. It was like a couple months in advance or something. And I'm so stoked. We're gonna go see the Sun Ra band. Yes. Something happened, and we just totally forgot. Like the night came and went, and like the next day we're sitting around going, was yesterday? Please tell me yesterday was not Sun Ra. And we look it up, and
Oh,
it's like, oh my God, we freaking missed it, dude. How? So
that's
it's kind of
terrible.
a funny story now, but it's like, oh my God, I was supposed to go see Sun Ra. So yeah, that's kind of one of those memories that tortures me a little bit.
So the last player I'm going to choose, I think, is similar to Sun Ra, not in a style of music sense, but I think two things. I think this is the most underrated jazz piano player ever.
Oh, here
Um,
we go.
and secondly, this I'm going to spoil it a little bit, disqualify the females out of the group,
Are
but
we
this
gonna do a little
gentleman,
just the tip here, and you're gonna like just kind of reveal a little bit at a time?
I don't, yeah, a little bit verbally though. But this gentleman to me, you everybody should be into this guy if you like music in general. Extremely influential, and I'm just gonna have a lot to say about this. But the piano player I'm gonna close with as the most underrated and underappreciated piano player in jazz is a gentleman named Mose Allison.
Good. My ears are
Mose,
open, dude. I have no idea.
okay, how do I describe Mose Allison? Well, he's a songwriter. Um, he's a lot like Bobby Caldwell, Elvis Presley, or Eminem, because when you hear this guy, you're like, wait, he's white. He is got a tempered soul to him, and when you listen to his music, you'll understand why. And I'll do my best to try to explain this. But when I think of Mose Allison, I think about wandering into a dive bar in some small town or city at like 7 o'clock, and if this guy's playing piano and singing, I don't want to leave. And when I do leave, it's probably 5 in the morning the next day, because he's
Mm,
just tearing it up. He has recognition from a lot of musicians. I know the Who covered some of his songs on Live at Leeds. I know John Mayall covered Wyoming Dave probably knows this. I don't think it's on this one. I think Parchman Farm. And I think the Clash even covered this guy. Um, I don't look for comedy in music, but his lyrics are so sarcastic and descriptive about how he's interacting with people or what his emotion is, that I just laugh every time I listen to him. There is a substantial amount of records that I would recommend for Mose Allison. All of them are pretty accessible. A lot of them are vocal, but he does have some instrumental albums. This is probably the most important one. I think this kind of got him kickstarted. This is on the Prestige label. I think it's 1959. Um, maybe a little bit earlier. Uh, does a cover of Blueberry Hill on here, I think. But this is a really cool record. And another great record here is Mose Allison Sings, which is on, what's this one? This is on Prestige as well. This is a lot of covers. I think he does Seventh Son, which if I'm not mistaken, is a Willie cover. A couple other blues covers on here. The Parchman Farm song I was mentioning that John Mayall covered in the late 60s is on here. Songs like I Don't Get Around Much Anymore are great. Do Nothing Till You Hear It From Me, which is basically like him standing up a girl on a date and trying to break up with her. And it's just a cool story if you listen to it, but really soulful, you know, a record that if you put on, people will kind of not be sure what to make of it. And then maybe 2 or 3 songs in, everybody be like, what is this? I need to know about it. He had a really long career. So it spanned from the 50s into the 90s. I think his later stuff I don't know too much about, but you have to think about it in the sense of kind of like how Van Morrison progressed in his career in the 90s. Maybe a little bit how Ray Charles progressed in his career in the 90s, where they kind of did all their great work, but they became masters of their craft and still put out really solid material. Just looking through, I have so many Mose Allison records. These aren't even all of them. But the other one that is worth, I mean, just look at this guy. He just looks too cool for school.
It looks like a photo from like the Civil War or something.
That's the thing about this guy. If you look at his photos, he's like trapped in time. You're not really. It's kind of like, you ever seen Napoleon Dynamite? You're not really sure when it takes place.
Yeah,
it's over a specific era. It's kind of like
with look at that.
It's wild.
Like I would expect that to see that picture in the encyclopedia under like the first photograph or something.
Yeah, exactly. This one's a great record too. So Your Mind Is on Vacation. It's a great tune. This is just basically about people who don't know what the hell they're talking about when it comes to anything. Meet Me at No Special Place is another great one. Meet Me at No Special Place at No Particular Time. So Mose Allison, I don't look for Canadian music, and he's not intentional, but he's so cool and his lyrics are so unique that, it's just a crack up to listen to him. Fantastic piano player, great musician. His styles varied over the decades, where he was, in a trio or a quartet, just kind of playing blues and jazz, and then kind of in this, had some 70s influence later on in his career. I mean, I can go on and on about Mose. Acquired taste shouldn't be an acquired taste. Everybody should have at least one Mose Allison record in their collection, even if it's kind of like a greatest hits or an anthology.
Can you compare him to anybody? I mean, if you were going to say, or is he just completely just...
Yeah, I would compare him to like a stoned white Ray Charles. That's how I would compare him.
Oh, okay.
He's not as soulful as Ray, but he has kind of like that ditty on the piano. He's very fast, smooth piano player, and he just does. It's not spoken word, his lyrics, but it's just, there's almost like a sarcasm or like a bashfulness to his vocal style. So it's not boisterous like Ray Charles, but it's in that spirit, just at a different tone and a different vocal style. You have to hear it. You have to listen to the playlist when it comes out. It'll be on the playlist.
Man. Yeah. Check out the playlist, man.
But yeah,
Mose Allison. Check that out immediately.
And this is the big thing, is that I know Pete Townsend is a big advocate of Mose, but there is a lot of clips online of popular musicians singing his praises, like talking about how great of a songwriter was, how influential he was. Obviously, that late 60s British blues explosion really influenced or inspired by a lot of his work. So I think if you give a couple spins to some of his, big tracks or whatever, I think it'll click with you all right away. And just a great artist. I love him. And just like Sun Ra, I can't take credit for being introduced to Mose. It was introduced to me by a couple of great friends with a lot more music knowledge than I have years ago. And since they gave it to me, I just got hooked. So it's got some sentimental value to me as well, that catalog.
Mose Allison seems like one of those things that once you're looking for it, you start to see it everywhere, the way you're describing it, So now I'm expecting to start see Mose Allison's going to start coming into my life. I know it, starting right here.
Yeah. See, listen, and just if anybody's doubting any of the picks, when you get Wyoming Dave supporting some of the recommendations you make, you're in the right galaxy. So thanks for that, Wyoming Dave. Love those sounds.
Wyoming Dave secretly has, or just quietly has, one of the most massive curated collections of records on the planet. I see him posting with multiple posts, Dave, like on Instagram. No two records are ever alike. It's every different kind of music you can think of. I'm like, where does it all end? It's like he just has an endless flow of records coming into the house, man. I love it.
I heard that Wyoming Dave could go through his record shelves and go at least 25 records without finding a record that Ron Carter's on. That's how big his collection is.
And that's hard to do. Oh God, that's good. All right. Well, my little record crate is empty. That must mean we got through everything, man. So that's cool. So believe it or not, that was 10. I need a little countdown or something. Maybe for next week, we'll do a little countdown so people can follow along. But that was 10 artists. 4 of them we agreed that we had to each do a little ditty on. And then the final 6, we did a little 3 and 3 action of our own personal takes. What are we doing next week, dude? Bass?
I think it's time. I was gonna say I think it's time we go to bass. I mean, we're talking about Ron. You're bringing up Mingus, even though you're bringing up some of his piano work, which is sorely underrated and could have a whole show. But I think it's bass next week. That's where I'm at.
I love it.
In the spirit of jazz, that's what we've just decided. You'll receive the break.
We're freestyling, right? That's improvisation right there, baby.
That's right. Yeah, bass it is.
Well, what do you think? Do you want to do a little? We want to tease this thing. It's so fun, man. I was talking about this on Whatnot Saturday. Had a jazz show. Brought up the whole fantasy draft thing, and people were super vibing on it, dude. It was so much fun to just talk to people and get their picks. Who are you going to put on drums? Who are you going to put on bass? Why? Is your strategy like just do a super band, or is your strategy to think about the characteristics of each of the players and try to really go chemistry heavy? What do you think, man? Do we got a few minutes to go through one of these?
Well, yeah, and I think in the spirit of our show, I think we should reward the people who have been on the stream the whole time or have made it through the replay of the stream. And I think we should reveal the special guests that we've curated. I think you should reveal the individual you reached out to, and I can reveal the individual I reached out to, because it's a big deal. I think
too, man.
Yeah.
This is going to be really, really fun. This is an idea that Chris came up with that I just think is freaking brilliant. And you know me, man, once I get an idea, once I get something in my head, even if it comes out of someone else's head, I'm like, we have to do this immediately. So yeah, we did a little bit of work. I was able to get Felipe from the Jazz Bums. Will be here a week from this coming Wednesday. So whatever that day is, the 6th or so, whatever that is, definitely save the date. It is going to be so much fun. And then you got someone, Chris.
Yeah. And I got arguably my favorite jazz follow on YouTube, Chris from What Can Brown, which is just an authority on jazz history, in my opinion, and really passionate about jazz. So, Jason and I were going to do this together, but we thought, let's make it more difficult on each other. Let's get a couple of other people, and let's get a couple of people that know a heck of a lot more than we do about the jazz world. So it's going to be a challenge. We're going to release some details on the format, but plan on next Wednesday. I think we're going to shoot for 9 Eastern, 8 Central, but we're going to do just kind of a 4-person draft. We have some unique ideas about the format to make it a little bit more entertaining, but we could, great. Well, I mean, Dave, so we could show you a sneak preview here. And this was my idea originally, but it was just a raw idea. Jason's really groomed this and put this into a whole new stratosphere with how we're going to do it. And he went as far as building an app for the for the draft, which is unbelievable for me.
Yeah, we've definitely collaborated on this, and I appreciate Chris letting me do it, because yeah, it's really fun, man. Just letting these ideas roll. Let me just answer before we jump in. Wyoming Dave did ask really about Eddie Haywood and Errol Garner. Of course, Errol Garner is in that Concert by the Sea, right? Which is just a fantastic album, man. What a player. I don't think Errol Garner could read music even, but he's one of those guys that just picked up the piano and just, took off with it. And it's just super, super Just great stuff. I love Concert by the Sea. I can listen to that any day of the week. Eddie Haywood, I don't know, man. You got something on those guys, Chris?
I don't. I think if I'm not mistaken, I thought he was an accompany player for some of the vocalists. Um, I don't think it was Billie Holiday. I want to say maybe Bessie Smith, something like that. I don't know if Wyoming Dave knows.
Yeah, Dave.
I don't know much about him.
We'll have to go look him up, man. See, even Dave offering through the copious collection he has, offering some great things to go check out. So yeah, I'm going to definitely go check those out. Errol Garner's a guy I've listened to for a while, often not in a while, but I do have Concert by the Sea, and I hope I'm not faded on that one too. Sometimes I get my names mixed up, but I'm pretty sure that's who that is, right? Right, Dave? Correct me if I'm wrong. Concert by the Sea, right? All right.
So Wyoming Dave says I have 6 Eddie Haywood records. Dave, while we're going through this draft, if you can maybe fire off some titles, I would like to investigate the gentleman.
Yeah, we might need to add Eddie Haywood to our roster. All right.
Yeah.
So here's the way it works. And again, I mean, jump in anytime, Chris, because I don't, I don't play fantasy football, anything like that. I think it's a cool concept, but I don't know that much about it. So this is where the collaboration comes into this. But
yeah, so I think when I was thinking about this with Jason, like we're going through these lists of great musicians, and I think all of you have noticed we've tried to really talk about musicians that we're passionate about. In both lists, I think there's probably some controversy of us leaving off some key names, but that's not what these lists are about. This is more of like our journey through jazz. What I thought would be interesting to kind of bridge that gap is to, put us in the driver's seat and basically build a band or a group or an arrangement of jazz musicians, but not just go for the best players available. Really put some thought into it, based upon who you're picking. Like, would these guys play well together? Have they ever played together? Is it a situation where you want to put, I don't know, Ron Carter never played with Coltrane, right? The one guy.
Well, that's the hard part too, is because in jazz, like it seems like everybody has played with everyone already. So you got to get creative here. A little more.
The other thing too. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
So I think the other great point that Jason brought up when we were talking about this is that you could also pick musicians with an era or a style of intention. So, if you wanted to put Dolphy in a fusion band, you could build that. So we're kind of going through this, and it just
gets me giggling, dude. You start thinking about Charlie Parker and Bill Evans in the same band, and then with Ron Carter or something, it's like, what?
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. So in the spirit of fantasy sports, I figure, well, we should have a draft and do this. So there's some caveats to it. So in order to make it a little bit more difficult, we put 2 more people who are authorities, in my opinion, on jazz, which will be cool. And the other thing too is, this is kind of a wild card I threw at Jason, but you'll also get to choose the label that you wish your band was signed with. So it could be Impulse, Blue Note, Prestige, Columbia. We're going to go through that.
So who's your label, Chris? Who's your label?
Well, I want my band to be really popular and make a lot of money, so I'm going to put them on Columbia.
Columbia.
I'm going to sell out right from the start.
All right, there's Chris, band name Columbia. Well, I want to be really I don't have to have a lot of money, but I do want to be popular, especially in the jazz world, so I'm going to be Blue Note.
Solid.
Okay. Does that still work for everybody? Yeah, that still works. Okay. So there we go. So now we got our selection. We got our 2 players, and next Wednesday we'll have 4, which would be really fun. And then we're just going to go through. So we start with the instruments, and then we'll get a list of names. And then we get to build our band. So Chris has first pick here. We'll just start with drums.
Okay.
Oops, now I lost part of it. Let me go down. There we go. And so here's your list of drummers, Chris. Who are you going to pick, man? Who's your drummer going to be? What is the backbeat of your band going to be?
Well, I'm going to have to go with my man, Elvin Jones.
Oh, it's not showing on screen, guys. Sorry. There's a pop-up that has all the different... Can you even see
I
that,
don't,
Chris? You can't, huh?
nah,
Okay, that's
nah.
not helpful. Here's your band. Here's your band. Here's your drummer choices. You got Art Blakey, Elvin Jones, Max Roach, Roy Haynes, Tony Williams, Buddy Rich, Billy Cobham, Joe Jones, Philly Joe Jones, and then there's an option to skip instrument if you don't want a drummer. This is why we're doing this. We want to resolve some of these issues for next week. So,
I'm gonna go with Elvin Jones.
all right, it's going Elvin Jones. Let's add Elvin. Boom. I'm gonna have to get this down even lower. Okay. All right, you're starting with Elvin. I'm gonna go with. You guys can't see this. Sorry about that. I didn't know I was gonna have. It's just for some reason projecting it. It doesn't show. I can see it fine. Okay, I'm gonna pick Tony Williams as my drummer, famously from Out to Lunch. All right, your pick. Let's go bass. We got Mingus, Ron Carter, Jaco Pastorius, Ray Brown, Stanley Clark, Oscar Pettiford, Sam Jones, Paul Chambers, Percy Heath, or you can skip.
I'm gonna go Ray Brown. I want some consistency. I want some
Ooh.
consistency to complement Elvin. We're gonna try to tame things down a little bit.
So I used to go to Ray Brown's birthday celebration. They did it. I think I went 2 years in a row in the Bay Area in Oakland at Yoshi's famous sort of jazz club and sushi bar. And it was so good, man. I got to see some fantastic players there. It was, he passed away at that time already, but it's a lot of people that played with Ray Brown put this band together. And I don't know if they're still doing it. Unfortunately, I'm not on the Bay Area anymore. So, but anyway, that's my connection with Ray Brown. So I'm going to pick,
cool.
Let's see, I got Mingus, Carter, Pastorius, Clark, Pettiford, Sam Jones, Chambers, Percy Heath. Man, am I really going to go Ron Carter? It seems too obvious. I think I have to go Ron Carter. I'm going to get creative later. All right. So far we got, what are we going to, we're going to do let's do a quintet. Let's make it, we need to get deep into this. So we'll do a quintet. So far, Chris has Elvin Jones and Ray Brown. I got Tony Williams and Ron Carter.
All right. What's the next instrument we can do?
Next instrument we could do piano. Just get a full rhythm section going. We got Thelonious Monk, Bill Evans, Herbie, Art Tatum, Chick Corea, Count Basie, Ahmad Jamal, Red Garland, Dave Brubeck. Damn. I want to watch him squirm. Anything striking your fancy there, Chris?
I have an approach to this. So I feel like I have Thunder with Elvin Jones. I have Ray Brown supporting that pocket.
Just smooth pocket.
Just reeling Elvin in when he needs to. I need a guy that can adjust and can adapt to all styles. I'm going to go with Garland here.
Ooh, nice pick. Red Garland. Played some great albums with Miles. All right, he's picking Red Garland. Not to mention great leader as well, man. All right. See, this is where I feel like I need to get a little bit creative. Again, the choices are going to be Thelonious Monk, Bill Evans, Herbie Hancock, Art Tatum, Chick Corea, Count Basie, if I really want to throw a wrench in my works, Ahmad Jamal, and Dave Brubeck. God, like I want to pick Monk so bad. Did we ever get the Monk, Tony Williams, Ron Carter? I doubt it.
Aren't you afraid that they might quit if Monk is in the band?
They might get like, bro, come on, man. Yeah, you're right. Who else am I taking though? I don't want to take the obvious take. I almost want to put Art Tatum in. We don't have Bud Powell in here. Because you know what? I need to add Bud Powell. I'm going to take Monk. I'm just going to take Monk.
Okay.
All right. So far we got Chris got Elvin Jones, Ray Brown, and Red Garland. I love that. I have Tony Williams, Ron Carter, and Monk. Okay, so we can skip any of these instruments you want to. If you don't want a trumpet, you don't have to have a trumpet. But if you do, here are your choices. You got Miles.
Well, let me save you. Let me save you for a minute. I want to pick a sax player. Is that too difficult right
Oh yeah,
now?
let's do it.
So I'm gonna just full disclaimer. I didn't know we could pick out of order. I'm glad you brought
Yeah.
that up. This would have been my number one pick to start almost any jazz band, any formation except a
Yep.
trio. This would have been my number one pick.
I just
You
got to
need a
respond
strong.
to table turns. We got no Horace. Don't worry, we'll get him in there. We'll get these guys in
Oh
there for
yeah,
next week. This is totally like a
this is the beta.
this is the beta. This is if that. Um,
So
well, let me read the
I need
names
it.
off for you so everyone knows what we got
Okay.
here. You
Okay,
got
fair.
John Coltrane, you got Sonny Rollins, Charlie Parker, Ornette Coleman, Dexter, Cannonball, Wayne Shorter, Joe Henderson, and Sonny Stitt.
Okay. I need a composer who's versatile, who can lead any size band. This would have been my number one pick overall if I had the number one pick. A spoiler alert for next week. I'm going Wayne Shorter.
Oh, I sort of suspected you might go with Wayne. All
And
right.
there's obviously the Steely Dan connection here because Ray Brown did do a session with Steely Dan as well, and so did Wayne Shorter. So I just have to rope that in.
I got to think, do I want a sax? I'd left Eric Dolphy off here. What was I thinking? In fact, I think that kind of makes it fun to not have every single artist in here. You know, you kind of corners you a little bit. All right. So again, we got Coltrane, Rollins, Parker, Ornette, Dexter, Cannonball, Joe Henderson, Sonny Stitt. Okay. You know, I'm going to pass just for the sake of argument. I'm going to skip sax just to show that we can do it. And I'll just take it off. Okay. And I'm not going to have a sax in my little quintet.
Oh wow.
Okay. So you got 4. So in fact, let me pick mine.
Pick.
Well, you go ahead because now it's your turn, and then I opted to pass. I don't even know if that's a thing in fantasy football.
Well,
but we're doing it.
You should go back and pick whatever you want. It doesn't have to be saxophone. You can pick any instrument.
Okay, so I think now the way I have this is that now you can skip.
All right, so skip me and go back to you, so you get a pick. That's
fair. I
I
picked the skip, so now I have to go to another one. We'll go piano, skip.
So you can pick whoever you want.
All right, so let me go. Okay, I get to pick whoever I want. I'm going to pick a trumpet, and I already know who I'm taking. Here's your trumpets. Miles, Louis Armstrong, or Lewis, if you like. Dizzy, Clifford Brown, Freddie Hubbard, Lee Morgan, Donald Byrd, Kenny Dorham, and Chet Baker. Wow. I'm going with Dizzy. I'm going with Dizzy. I just am. Dizzy is my guy, man. Pioneer of bebop music, just total killer on the trumpet. I still don't think he's been topped. All right, which one? What do you want to go with now? Do you need a trumpet? You got one more player to add. You got 4. You need 5.
I'm going trumpet.
Okay.
And
you need the list again?
No, this is a layup. This is a layup for me. They already have history together. They were friends. They played on some great sessions together. I'm going Lee Morgan.
Oh,
we got Wayne Shorter and Lee Morgan. You have Ray Brown reeling in Elvin Jones and his thunder. And you have Red Garland, who's just versatile, slow and steady, could be a leader, could be a sideman. He's going to bring these guys all together. And then just the vocab of Lee and Wayne going back and forth. I mean, this might be the greatest jazz band ever assembled.
It could be. As the table, keeping us honest, we should differentiate alto, tenor, baritone. Yes. Bass, clarinet. We're going to need to get in here. Whew, man, putting me to work. Putting me to work.
I think as the table turns, by the way, great channel. I think he's got some salient points, but I would say bringing in some of those experts that we've recruited, I think they're going to know about these choices and make some of those comments and leave some of the amateurs like me and you to suffer. So maybe we should leave it just general and have them give their commentary on why they're choosing. But it's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Yeah, for sure. I think I do have in here that you could pick multiples of the same instrument. But yeah, it doesn't differentiate the actual instrument that would be being played. We're leaving it open-ended. All right. So what am I going to do here, man? I got a lot of choices. I can take a vibraphone. I can take a guitar. I don't know if I'm feeling guitar for this one. I'm going to go vibes, dude. Oops. Choices on vibes. We got Milt Jackson, Bobby Hutcherson, Cal Jader. Oops, I got Milt Jackson on here twice. Lionel Hampton, Red Norvo. So those are our choices of vibe players. I mean, you know who I'm going to pick. I got to pick
Come
Bobby.
on.
I got to pick Bobby. All right, so there I am. I got Tony Williams on drums, Ron Carter on bass. We've seen that before. Then we got Monk on the keys with Dizzy on trumpet, dude. Woo, how is that going to work? This is a really experimental band here. And Hutcherson filling in on the vibraphone. So I got my piano and vibraphone in the same band here. I'm just going to say they really complement each other on this. And then you've got Elvin Jones on drums, Ray Brown on bass, Red Garland on keys, Lee Morgan on trumpet, and Wayne Shorter on sax. Wow, look at these groups, man.
I
I love it. I love it.
love it.
Thank you as the table turns. Very, yeah. See, and that's kind of the point too, is to try to do some things that are a little, I don't know, a little out there, a little out there. As long as you can, why not? What does they say in Jurassic Park? Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
Something like that. Oh man.
Well,
That's cool, man.
I think it's also interesting. This kind of goes to my point about having like a nice pool of people participating.
Yeah.
No Miles, no Train, no Mingus, no Blakey.
Well, and you
None
guys
of them
probably
were
notice. I
chosen.
mean, once somebody takes an artist, like they're out. They've been picked. Like now and we're gonna have 4 people next week, so that's gonna leave some people at the back end of this, having to get really creative.
We should also reveal that this is going to be multiple drafts. So our intention here is to do trio, quartet, etc. Right.
Yeah.
So that's going to add some different flavors to it and give people some freedom to be experimental in each style of music. So
Yep.
yeah, this will be fun. I think this is a good beta run. Looks like the crowd was excited as the table turns. Thanks for your comments, some advice
Yeah.
there.
Appreciate you.
Um,
Thank
yeah,
you,
he's got a
Wyoming
great channel.
Dave.
Have you ever watched his channel? It's fantastic.
I'll go check it out.
Killer channel. Big fan as the table turns.
Not saying I haven't. I'm not sure. I'll go check you out as the table turns. Give you a subscribe, baby. That was fun. That was fun. We're also trying to. One of the big things too. I think we both agreed on this is that we got to get you guys involved, man. And it doesn't help that you can't see who the artists are in advance. I'll get that all fixed. But yeah, I think at some point in the not too distant future, we're gonna have to put together a nice little, a team of people, viewers to get in on this and make their picks. Because I think if I'm, the little bit of research, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but you can have up to 16 teams, right? Players on here. I mean, that could get really interesting, and we'd have to get way deeper on our pool of our musicians. But that could be pretty fun. And maybe we don't go that deep into it, but even if we had 10 guys, that would be super cool.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool. And I'm seeing some names and some people that have been with us the whole stream in both weeks. And I think they would be great choices to participate. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. I was even thinking maybe we'll do a giveaway or something, put some stakes on it. We'll do a record. So if this is something and you're watching this video either live or if you're watching it at a later date, just drop in the comment section that you would be interested in doing a draft like this, and we'll figure it out. We'll get everybody live, and we'll run a little draft. And that should be really, really fun. They don't have to come on camera or anything, but I mean, we'll figure out how to make it work and stuff. So cool. All right, Chris, that was fun.
Like I said earlier, for me, Monday is the new Friday. It's been a great couple of weeks, and I think we decided on bass next week, right?
Bass. All right, time to dig through the bass players, get creative.
Well, Jason, always a pleasure.
Hey, thank you, As Table Turns. Definitely leave a comment, man. We will be reaching out to you. This will be really fun. Like I said, I brought it up on Whatnot, and a lot of people in that show were very interested in jazz. And man, the back and forth was just endless. People were blowing my mind with some of their picks, man. It was just like, what? Just some of the really interesting things you can do with this. So yeah, we'll get this fine tuned. You guys will get to see us a week from next Wednesday. Again, we're going to bring on Chris from
What Can Brown.
And then we got Felipe from the Jazz Bums right here with us on Outward Bound. And that'll be fun. But before that, even, we'll be back here the following Monday. I think I will be. Yeah, I will be. I'm going away for the weekend, but I think I'll be back next Monday for bass. So we'll definitely plan for that one. For everyone that hung through and watched, thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Thanks for chiming in the comments section. I love it. Look forward to the next one in the series. Look forward to the draft that way. That's going to be really fun. And Chris, as always, dude, I love it. We were vibing today, man. I appreciate you being here.
Dude,
I appreciate you being here as an equal partner. It's just fun having, being able to do this and teaming up on this stuff, man. It's really cool.
fantastic time. Great conversation. Looking forward to the next one.
All right. We'll see you guys. Have a great week.